happens that I'm in need of a man with your particular skill set. I quirked a brow. And what, pray tell, have you heard? I asked. It's my understanding that you're something of an expert on the occult, at least in comparison to the local population. I also understand you're quite the accomplished liar and thief. You possess more than a few, shall we say, less common talents, she said, meeting my gaze without so much as a twitch. I put my cup on the table and ran a hand through my hair. She was right, of course. I was the only spell-slinging, dream-walking, spirit-talking, magic-making shaman around these parts. At least, I was the only one that I knew of. She was also right in saying that I had a bit of a reputation amongst the locals, especially among those who were involved in the more spooky side of things. Whether that reputation was for good or ill was mostly dependent on who you asked. Is that assessment far from the truth? She asked. For the sake of conversation, let's assume that it's not, I said. How about you tell me what this job is all about? It was an item that belonged to my husband. Aside from being quite valuable, it possesses more than a little bit of sentimental value. It was stolen recently, and it's come to my attention that it is now somewhere within your fine city. So call the police. I'm afraid that isn't an option. All right, let's assume for a moment that I am interested in tracking this down. What exactly is it that I would be acquiring? I asked. Are you familiar with Ledberg Runestone? She asked. I think I saw a documentary on it once, but I wouldn't say I'm familiar. Refresh my memory? She nodded. Runestones are national treasures in Scandinavia. They depict art and stories ranging back to the time of the Vikings. The Ledberg stone, according to some, is a depiction of a very famous story of Norse mythology. My husband acquired a piece of this artifact. Much like many of the things my husband was involved in, he used less than reputable sources in acquiring it. Which explains why you can't call the police. Precisely, she said. I settled back in my chair and stared at her over the rim of my cup. My hangover was mostly gone now, the ache in my head reduced to a distant minor discomfort. She'd picked the right time to ask, I'll give her that. Conning desperate folks with fake exorcisms wasn't exactly a booming business. It paid the bills, I suppose, but I'd been doing it so long that I had to travel to Boone, Hickory, and in some cases all the way out to Greensboro to find work where people didn't know my name or my face. On rare occasions, I did chase away an actual spirit, so it wasn't all dishonest work. Only most of the time. I gave the woman another once-over. She wasn't wearing much in the way of jewelry. A simple pendant at the hollow of her throat hung on a leather cord. She wore a cuff-style bracelet that looked like it was silver, but could have just as easily have been made of pewter. Her clothes, a light jacket, jeans, and a black button-up shirt that clung to her figure, didn't exactly scream massive bank account. Sure, she could have been one of the folks that didn't want to flaunt their money, but in my experience, those people were a rarity. Let's suppose, for the sake of conversation, that I were to take your job. What kind of pay are we talking about? $10,000 up front, and another $10,000 when I have possession of the stone. 20 grand. That was a lot of money. Enough for me to pay off a few debts and take some time off. A few months would be enough time to let things settle down, and for my name to get out of circulation, at least locally. It was tempting. Hell, it was more than tempting. Which is exactly why I had to turn her down. I've been in this game for a while, and like in most things, when an offer came along that seemed too good to be true, it usually was. In less than legal lines of work, it could mean anything from a run-in with the cops to a potentially fatal setup from the competition. I think I'm going to have to pass, I finally said. Thanks for the drink. Can I ask why? I emptied my cup and set it on the table. Honestly? She nodded. 2 reasons. First, you're offering me $20,000 to go steal some rock.